Good morning and welcome to our Zoom worship service.
We preface our service by acknowledging that the land on which our homes and our church were built was not uninhabited when European settlers arrived here with their ideas of conquest and ownership. For those of us who live in Moscow, Pullman, or other nearby communities, we live on the ancestral homelands of the Nimipu, called Nez Perce by the French-speaking traders, the Peluche, and the Shitshumsh, called the Coeur d'Alene. If you are joining us from another place, I encourage you to discover who inhabited or moved through the place where you now live in the time before colonization and genocide. We pause and remember that we live on ground that is sacred, ground that was stolen, ground that still cries out for justice, and also for responsible stewardship. May our remembering help us find the courage to do our part to restore wholeness to the earth and all her peoples. And now let's join our voices together for the words of welcome, our unison chalice lighting, and our sung affirmation. So please say these words with me. Whoever you are, wherever you've come from, whatever your beliefs, whomever you love, and however bumpy your life's journey, know that you are welcome here. We hope that everyone has a chalice or a candle to light and something to light it with. Let's go ahead and light them together.
Hi, I'm David Nelson.
I'm Nancy Nelson.
And I'm Kate Nelson.
In the light of truth and the warmth of love, we gather to seek and seek to share.
From all that dwell below the skies, let songs of hope and love arise. Let beauty, truth, and good be sung in every land by every tongue.
Our opening words this morning are by my brilliant creative colleague, Gretchen Haley. This is a call for all the people longing for liberation, all who wander too often the desert, not sure of the way forward, too often thirsty and afraid, looking for water. Here is a call to collect ourselves and the hopes we have tucked away, set aside too often for another day. Here we are flowing together, becoming a river that cannot run dry. The waters are always rapid, and then still, steady, and then waterfalls. There's nothing tidy or perfect possible in this journey. Abundant life is messy and glorious, filled with risk. This is a call for the diving in with all the dreams of your heart, the struggles, the silliness, the fear, the hunger, the courage, the community, the love. Here we remember the time for joy is always now. Let's join in singing our opening hymn, Wo Ya Ya.
It will be hard.
This morning's Time for All Ages is a video recorded way back in 2005, so you'll see how far the technology has come. It's a presentation of a Sufi story called The Stream, and it's absolutely stunning, so enjoy.
High in a far-off mountain, a little stream sang from a hidden source. It flowed down the mountain over all different kinds of terrain, sometimes leaping and bubbling, sometimes drifting lazily, or going underground. But it was never stopped by any obstacle that might have gotten in its way. One day, it reached the edge of a vast desert. Just one more step. One more obstacle. One more. Nothing has ever stopped me from flowing. I will overcome this obstacle too. So the stream flung itself at the desert. But each time it did so, its waters simply disappeared, vanishing into nothingness, swallowed up by the dry, hot sand. But if it was its destiny to cross that desert, it would surely find a way. The wind can cross the desert, and so can the stream. If the wind can cross the desert, so can the stream. The stream can cross. I know I must cross this desert, but every time I try, no matter how hard I fling myself at the desert, I don't get any further. You won't be able to cross the desert using the old way. I am not like a boulder or a tree or a rock ledge. It is no use hurling yourself at the desert like that. You will never cross the sand like this. You will simply disappear or turn into marshland. You must trust the wind to carry you across the desert. You must let yourself be carried. How can the wind carry me across the desert? You must let yourself be absorbed into the wind. And then the wind will carry you. No! I am a stream with a nature and identity of my own. I don't want to lose myself by being absorbed into the wind. That's what the wind does. Trust me and trust the wind. If you let yourself be absorbed by the wind, it will carry you across the desert and let you fall again on the other side to be a stream again.
But I won't be the same stream that I am now. I won't be this particular stream.
The desert understood the dilemma. but it also understood the mystery. You're right. I am. You won't be the same stream you are now if you fling yourself into the sand and turn into a marsh. Let the wind carry you across the desert, and the real you, the real heart of you, the essence of everything you truly are, will be born again on the other side, to flow a new course, to be a river that you can't even imagine from where you are standing now. So the stream thought for a long while, but deep in its heart, it had a memory of a wind that could be trusted and a horizon that was always out of reach, but was always a new beginning. So the stream took a deep breath and surrendered itself to the power of the wind. And the wind took the vapor of the stream in strong and loving arms and carried it high above the desert, far beyond the horizon, and let it fall again, softly, at the top of a new mountain. And the stream began to understand who it really was and what it meant to be a stream.
And now I invite you to drift just a little bit deeper into meditation. So think back to our story, to that moment when the stream came to the edge of the desert. In your life, what desert are you on the edge of? What barriers are blocking your way? What is keeping you from being or becoming the fullest and most joyful version of yourself? Then broaden your perspective. What metaphorical deserts in our collective life feel most present, feel insurmountable? To cross the desert, the stream first had to let go of the way it had always been. What do you need to let go of? Release. rise out of. The stream had to trust the wind to carry it. What do you trust to hold and carry you? Can you feel it with you, underneath your wings, lifting you up, gently blowing you forward? The stream had to identify the essence of who it was. What is your essence? What are the deep values, the truly important aspects of being human, individually or collectively? On the far side of the desert, the stream rained down and reassembled itself. What gravity pulls you down, pulls you back together? What forces help you reground and recenter? I invite you to inhabit this story fully. Let yourself imagine being not just the stream, but the desert, the wind, the parched earth. In the silence, may insight, wisdom, and compassion coalesce and bloom. This morning's reading comes from the New York Times, and it's accompanied. This is the introduction to it. But if you go online and check it out, it has reflections from individual people across the country on changes that have happened for them in the last year, along with some beautiful photography. It's a powerful experience. So I encourage you to check it out if you have a minute. Certain moments in life have the power to shift our core sense of being. The death of a parent, the birth of a child, an incurable disease diagnosis. The corona pandemic and all it has wrought is such a moment. Everyone knows someone who got sick or died or lost her job. Everyone has a personal before and after. It's been a collective near-death experience for those lucky enough to survive. People have found themselves close to life's deepest questions, those forced by an apocalypse. Questions about how we live, how we suffer, and how we make meaning of our short time here on this earth. Who am I? Who are we? Who are we becoming? How have we been transformed? Through it all, the world has not stopped. The killing of George Floyd, the Capitol siege, more mass shootings. For some, facing trauma feels too hard. Others have found unexpected resilience and courage, rage, or stillness. Transformation was forced on some, and for others, it was chosen. For many, the suffering of this past year has birthed an awakening. The questions of how we have changed will be with us in the months and years ahead. The process of reflection is just beginning. Where it takes us remains to be seen, but the clarity that comes with intense suffering often clouds as time moves on. We have a window now to look at our lives anew. So there are a number of different models of spiritual transformation. Some have 5 steps, some 12. Every tradition breaks it down a little differently. I went down that rabbit hole several weeks ago and wound up just circling back to this little Sufi story and my own experience of what it feels like in this body, in this life, to move through experiences that change everything about everything. We could call it post-traumatic growth. We could call it rebirth or resurrection. We could call it whatever we choose, but I'd venture a guess that all of us have lived through or moved through a time when our understanding of who we are and how the world works breaks apart, leaving us bereft and profoundly uncomfortable. I'd venture a guess that we've all moved through a time of disorientation and chaos, waiting for a new structure and identity to coalesce. For me, it begins with impasse, with facing squarely and without defenses into a situation that has the potential to shatter me, a situation I have no control over. In some models, this stage is described as being shipwrecked. The structures and beliefs that have supported us and carried us on our life journey prove to be inadequate for some reality we are facing. Constance Fitzgerald, in her essay entitled Impasse and the Dark Night, describes it this way. By impasse, I mean that there is no way out of, no way around, no rational escape from what imprisons one. No possibilities in the situation. Every logical situation remains unsatisfying. Any movement out, any next step is canceled, and the most dangerous temptation is to give up, to quit, to surrender to cynicism and despair in the face of the disappointment, disenchantment, hopelessness, and loss of meaning that encompasses one. Moreover, intrinsic to the experience of impasse is the impression and feeling of rejection and lack of assurance from those on whom one counts. At the deepest levels of impasse, one sees the support systems on which one has depended pulled out from under one and asks if anything, if anyone is trustworthy. This is how impasse looks to those who are imprisoned within it. It is the experience of disintegration. of deprivation of worth, and it has many faces, personal and societal. So signs that we are trapped in impasse include an apparent breakdown of communication and a powerlessness to do anything about it. One's usual way of functioning or relating to others provides no satisfaction and just isn't working. We might feel an emptiness in life, experience a deadness of desire. We might also find ourselves obsessed with the problem, conscious and more conscious than usual of our own failures and mistakes. We might be full of suspicion and fear that maybe this darkness, maybe this problem is actually of our own making. This is the stream when it comes to the desert. It's stuck. It tries everything, but nothing works. All the things it knows about how to be a stream are no longer effective. So it gets swallowed up, dry and impotent. It rages at the situation and at itself. As Fitzgerald puts it, if we deal with personal impasse only in the way our society teaches us, by illusion, minimization, repression, denial, and apathy, we'll deal with societal impasse in the same way. So, what's the alternative? All of the many descriptions of this process point to the same thing. We need to surrender. We need to release control. The stream allows itself to evaporate and be carried by the wind. This is Fitzgerald again. The psychologists and the theologians, the poets and the mystics assure us that impasse can be the condition for creative growth and transformation if the experience of impasse is fully appropriated within one's heart and flesh with consciousness and consent. If the limitations of one's humanity and human condition are squarely faced and the sorrow of finitude allowed to invade the human spirit with real existential powerlessness. If the ego does not demand understanding in the name of control and predictability, but is willing to admit the mystery of its own being and surrender itself to this mystery. If the path into the unknown, into the uncontrolled and unpredictable margins of life is freely taken when the path of deadly clarity fades. For people who have faith in some higher power, this surrender involves trusting that there's a plan, a consciousness, something that will carry them through to the other side, like the wind carries our little stream. For people who don't, the question of surrender, of what we trust to hold us and carry us through, gets a little trickier. Do we trust the inherent goodness of human beings? There's an awful lot of evidence that human beings are not particularly trustworthy. Do we trust the evolutionary process? Is there a planetary wisdom that finds a way back to a balanced ecosystem? Well, maybe, but it's a process of death and mutation. Do we trust the deep resilience of the human spirit? Our own capacity to make a way out of no way? This phrase, to make a way out of no way, comes out of the Black womanist theological tradition. For theologians like Jacqueline Grant and Kelly Brown Douglas, Dolores Williams, and Joanne Terrell, it articulates Black women's relationships with God as they navigate the reality of their lives in pursuit of wholeness and justice. I think we'd be wise to follow their lead and the lead of Monica Coleman, another theologian grounded in both the womanist tradition and in process theology. Rather than seeking a higher power or wiser consciousness, we could place our trust in what Coleman defines as the cooperative process that occurs in teaching healing communities for the social transformation of the world. Coleman describes making a way out of no way as a verb, a gerund. Health and wholeness come through teaching, healing, remembering, honoring, and creatively transforming. We're saving. In other words, we can trust that doing the right thing, the moral thing, the courageous and generous thing will eventually get us to the other side. I know, it's hard. There's a lot of scientific and anecdotal evidence that these problems that have trapped us in impasse are unyielding. The true test of a belief, though, is not whether or not it's rational or verifiable. A good belief is one that is helpful. It's not helpful to believe that nothing we do will ever make a difference. And it is helpful. It is helpful to believe that we have the capacity to make a way out of no way. So when we surrender, when we release our need for control, what happens is that we take our rational, logical, problem-solving brain offline temporarily, and we lean into our intuition. This is Fitzgerald again. A genuine impasse situation is such that the more action one applies to escape it, the worse it gets. The principles of first-order change, reason, logic, analysis, planning, do not work. Thoroughgoing impasse forces one, therefore, to end one's habitual methods of acting by a radical breaking out of the conceptual blocks that normally limit one's thinking. Genuine change occurs through a second-order response, one which rethinks the solution previously tried and suggests something altogether unexpected. The quality of paradox is at the heart of second-order change. It implies that the unexpected, the alternative, the new vision is not given on demand, but is beyond our conscious, rational control. It's the fruit of unconscious processes in which the situation of impasse itself becomes the focus of contemplative reflection. Now, if you're like me, you might be squirming a little right now. I like logic, analysis, and planning very, very much. And I also see so many situations where they're not only not helping, but actually making things worse. So there's this paradox. On the one hand, making a way out of no way requires that we act. On the other, part of the definition of impasse is that our efforts don't help the situation. We're like the stream throwing itself at the desert to no avail. So somehow we have to act, but without effort or logic. I've spoken before about my own lived experience, which is that when I surrender to overwhelm, to impasse, what comes to me is a sense of peace and a sense of being held in love. I also received this limited clarity, not about the solution to the problem or what's going to happen ultimately, but about the one next right thing to do. And when I do this one next right thing, it works out. It makes things better. Knowing that this is what has always happened previously makes it easier to surrender. So it gets easier with practice. When I surrender, when I trust the process that intuition invites me into, I find a way. That one next right thing is an effortless thing, an easeful thing, something that comes naturally, something that isn't forced or frustrating, but it requires that I release control. I let the wind carry me. In the next part of the story, where the stream rains down on the far side of the desert, the metaphor invites us to think not just about finding a way, but making a way for those who come after us. After all, clouds don't create canyons. Running water does. I think the question to hold on the far side of the desert is, what grounds me? What makes me feel whole again? What are the deep sources that nourish and sustain? You know the answers that are right for you. For me, the list is beauty, nature, music, friends, gratitude, belly laughs, joy, community. Yesterday, I went out in the rain and I closed my eyes and I turned my face up, and it was cold and it was wet and it felt so refreshing and good. And for just that moment, all the stress and uncertainty and frustration melted away. I was able to just be happy. Remember back in 2019 when I talked about what happens inside a chrysalis when a caterpillar is becoming a butterfly? If you weren't here, the caterpillar liquefies. It eats itself, it digests itself, and then regrows based entirely on information held in these things called imaginal disks, which are highly concentrated groups of cells that contain the essence of who they are meant to be. When we let go of old ways, when we surrender controls and release our need to understand rationally, we need to trust our imaginal disks. There's something in us that sustains and maintains and holds, and when the time is right, helps us reconstitute as better, wiser, more whole versions of ourselves. This is true for us as individuals, and it's true, I believe, for our collective endeavor, for our species evolving into a new way of being that is sustainable and kind and loving. Dear ones, at any moment in our life, in consideration of different situations, both personal and societal, we might be stuck in impasse. We might find ourselves at the edge of the desert. We might also find ourselves finding our way through the untethered, uncomfortable air of trust and surrender, the uncertain process of transformation. And we might find ourselves in some ways returning to ourselves, our best selves, returning to center, to groundedness, to joy and praise. It's not linear, it's happening on multiple levels all at the same time. And it is a wild, wild ride, all of it. But the alternatives, we can throw ourselves at the desert fruitlessly forever, or we could dam ourselves up high in the mountain and stagnate. That's not who we're meant to be. It's not who we are. So in the days and the weeks and the months and the years to come, may we give ourselves over to the process of transformation that looks like stuckness and dryness, followed by surrender and release of control, followed by regrounding and praise. May we find our way. May we make a way out of no way. So be it, and blessed be. Our closing hymn is Wake Now, My Senses.
Wake now, my senses, and hear the earth call. Feel the deep power of being in all. Keep with the web of creation your vow, giving, receiving, as love shows us how. Wake now, my reason, reach out to the new. Join with each pilgrim who quests for the true. Honor the beauty and wisdom of time. Suffer thy limit and praise the sublime. Wake now, compassion, give heed to the cry. Voices of suffering fill the white sky. Take as your neighbor both stranger and friend, praying and striving their hardship to end.
Our closing reading is by another brilliant and creative colleague, Burton Carley. Since the economy is in a kind of black hole, I was interested to read that researchers using NASA's Spitzer Space Telescope have traced the building blocks of the universe back one more step, and it leads to the massive black holes in space. We know that the Earth did not spring out of thin air, but is essentially recycled matter and higher elements. The story of Genesis gets it right in the sense that we truly come from dust, from space dust. But where did that dust come from? Many galaxies have a black hole at their center, and the researchers for the first time were able to see how a supermassive black hole in a galaxy 8 billion light years from ours was shooting out winds, carrying dust composed of complex elements. The theory is that black holes suck in simple gases at high velocity where they collide and are superheated together to form complex molecules and grains of dust. Thrust back into space, the dust eventually collects and forms stars and planets with the chemical compounds from which life can form. From chaos come the building blocks for creation. It's good to remember when spiritual storms are brewing inside our lives and also outside in the economic environment. And how do we endure chaotic times? It seems counterintuitive, but it is through praise that we bear our transformations. The poet Rainer Maria Rilke understood this so well in the following poem, translated by Albert Ernest Fleming. Oh, tell us, poet, what is it you do? I praise. But in the midst of deadly turmoil, what helps you endure and how do you survive? I praise. And that which nameless is, anonymous, how do you, poet, still call out to them? I praise. Who grants you your right to pose in any guise, wear any mask, and still remain sincere? I praise. And that the stillness and the violence, like the star and the storm, know and acknowledge you because I praise. We survive our deepest struggles because the human spirit rose from the dust with the possibility of joy and praise. It is why we come to church. Please join in singing our benediction, There is a Love. Please stay with me the words to extinguish our chalice flame. We extinguish this chalice that it might glow gently in our hearts. May it light our paths as we leave this place. May it guide our way until we are together again. Beloveds, as the case numbers climb locally, as the signs of global warming are ever present, as our hearts break, as our minds falter, may we keep the faith that all of these challenges and all of these suffering offer not just pain and challenge, but an opportunity to transform, to grow, to learn, to become truer and better versions of ourselves. Lean into the chaos, trust the love. I love you. I miss you.